Carl Jung invented an archetype which contains all the repressed psychological parts of a personality. He called it the shadow. In childhood, the shadow is mostly developed. Society, your parents, and you yourself regulate upcoming impulses. Only what is acceptable for the listed instances and many other factors can be successfully integrated. The other psychological impulses will be repressed. Repressed parts can, for example, be aggression, sexuality, as a man showing feminine traits or as a woman showing masculine traits, and so on. But the shadow can also contain positive aspects, like showing affection, being moral, merciful, forgiving, loving, etc. Since the shadow contains all that is repressed, it is also the storehouse of your disowned potential, containing everything you need to become whole. It's a lifelong task to successfully integrate your shadow. In this series, we will take any fictional character and try to uncover his or her shadow journey. Meruem opposes the common hero's journey. Usually, it is the human who has to accept the beast. Naruto had to integrate the Kyuubi, Ichigo had to integrate White, Asta had to integrate his devil, and so on. But Meruem reversed the pattern. The beast had to integrate the human. In this video, we will take a detailed look at his personality as usually, which role his mother and the guards had, why exactly it was Komugi who triggered his development, and if he ultimately reached full shadow integration in only 40 days. Meruem was planned to be the king. The Ant Queen took a lot of time to create the perfect king to rule the whole world, making him the by far strongest, smartest, and generally the most capable being the world has ever seen. In addition, she created 3 guards who served as the perfect complement to the king. Pitou with all of her diverse abilities, Yuppie with raw power, and Poof with manipulation. Meruem forcefully separated himself from his mother. He instantly adapted to his position as a king. He was by far the strongest ant. The guards inherited the will of the queen and therefore bent their knees, knowing that Meruem stood above all. Although being born with the by far strongest physics among all ants, Meruem had a very primitive state of mind. He undoubtedly had the tendency to be very smart, but at the beginning his impulses and instincts ruled his mind. Anything which, from his point of view, was perceived as disrespectful was punished with instant death. He even wanted to eliminate Pitou because he felt disrespected by her, which would have been one of the dumbest things he could have done. Pitou, with her wide range of skills, is one of the most important allies for him. So the attack wasn't well thought out or anything like that, but simply an impulsive reaction from a weak, underdeveloped personality. So what was the shadow of Meruem? To understand Meruem, we need to take a look at his mother. As I said earlier, the queen purposefully created Meruem to rule over the world. And Meruem at first identified himself with the role his mother gave him. The main reason why he had a claim to be the king was because of his unmatched strength. Therefore, he was feared by humans and ants, and therefore he could do whatever he wanted to do. No matter who stood in his way, he could have simply killed him. And there is the shadow of Meruem. Meruem didn't value anything beyond physical strength. He lacked the value for life itself or, for example, for the soul, because his claim to the throne is solely based on his physical strength. Another major part of his shadow is that he identified too strongly with the role assigned to him by his mother. Meruem lacked individuality. He didn't know his name, and for a long time he didn't even realize that he didn't know his name. Meruem was only addressed as the king, and he simply accepted that identity. Now, after outlining Meruem's shadow, we are able to understand his progress. Meruem quickly noticed that he had a great thirst for knowledge, so he started to read many books. There he got an idea of people, what their cultures look like, where their weaknesses lie, and what he would like to do better. He also noticed that he was interested in strategic games. There we saw his immense intelligence. He learned incredibly fast, winning against every champion in the respective games. Meruem also wanted to beat the champion of Gungi, and there he met Komugi. She was the initial trigger for Meruem to make immense progress, because she is the almost complete opposite of Meruem, and therefore the personification of his shadow. Komugi was a blind, weak girl. She had 12 siblings and couldn't help on the field. The only value she believed she had was that she was the champion of Gungi. Komugi said that she would eliminate herself if she lost a game, because if she lost, she thought that she would be nothing but trash. Meruem started to play against her, and he quickly realized that she was different. No matter how often they played and how much progress he made, he couldn't win against her. He lost again and again. After many games they decided to take a break, and Meruem became interested in Komugi asking for her name. She answered and then asked him the same question. In that moment, Meruem for the first time was confronted with his lack of individuality. He was simply the king, without a name. During the break, Meruem gathered his guards, and they also didn't know his name. Then something very important happened. Meruem acknowledged Komugi's unmatched talent, which symbolized the appreciation for things that transcend physical strength. Meruem also questioned himself because he eliminated a child which could have had similar potential as Komugi, some hidden talent he wasn't able to see, because at that time he was solely focused on physical strength. Meruem then became ecstatic, saying that he is the king, because he was and still is able to eliminate any life or potential with his immense physical strength, which meant that he was still above all. Although it seemed like Meruem didn't learn anything, it is actually slightly different. Meruem felt irritated by Komugi, because she embodied that there is more to value than mere physical strength. Meruem in that moment tried to rationalize his way out, not confronting the irritation he felt and simply eliminate the problem itself. And in some way he's right, physical strength always dominated, and he could just eliminate her or anyone with any potential. But that's not how you should face what irritates you. Carl Jung once said, "Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves." Meruem decided to eliminate Komugi because he felt irritated. But once he entered her room and witnessed how helpless she was, then again something interesting and important happened. Meruem reacted contrary to his alleged will. He killed the crows and protected her. His true feelings about Komugi took control, expressing how worried he was about her, and that she was an important guest for him. Meruem was shocked by what he said, but everything he said was true. He deeply cared about Komugi. He might have had a different conclusion when he talked with his guards, and he entered with a different intention, but on a higher level of consciousness, one part of him knew that she was important for his progress to become a developed individual. Meruem then continued to play against Komugi. But it was the same story. No matter how much better he got, he couldn't win against her. And Komugi also started to develop. Meruem could see and feel it. Komugi's development once more demonstrated the huge difference between them. Afterwards they decided to take another break. Meruem again reflected himself. He still felt irritated by Komugi, but the difference from the previous break, Meruem realized that it was fun, wrestling with his shadow, trying to uncover the wisdom she held for him. Shortly after Meruem and Komugi continued to play Gungi, the Hunter Association started their attack. Dragon Dive unfortunately also hit Komugi. Meruem made immense progress as a character. Komugi became the most important person for Meruem, and the Meruem from the beginning would have instantly attacked Netero and Zeno. And even though Meruem had a frightening thirst for murder, he was able to fully control himself. Meruem now is not the slightest comparable to his earlier state. He stayed calm and rational. He wanted to talk to high-ranked humans about the current state of the world and their point of view. Therefore, he entrusted the injured Komugi to Pitou and went off with Zeno and Netero. Meruem wanted to talk. He was able to make some statements about the irrationality of humans creating imaginary borders or the unfairness of wealth distribution. On the one side of the border, people have to starve to death and have to fight for life from day to day. But on the other side of the border, people have too much money to spend. Meruem wanted to change it all, creating a better world with more equality and fairness. Netero felt that his heart could fall for Meruem as a king, but he had other plans and started to fight him. The fight didn't trigger any necessary development for Meruem. I just want to point out his intelligence. With his pattern recognition, he was able to basically predict the outcome of the fight. Netero, after revealing Meruem's name, said that Meruem underestimated the potential of humans. And I don't think that it's true. Meruem had the by far biggest potential of all Nen users we have seen so far, Nanika and the other great calamities excluded. No one expressed similar potential as Meruem. But Meruem definitely underestimated how far humans would go to protect themselves, which ultimately cost his life. Now it's the right time to talk about the gods and the queen. We already discussed how the queen imposed the role of the king onto Meruem. The gods are different from the other ants, because they inherited the will of the queen, as Poof said it himself. If any other ant had found an almost dead Meruem, it would probably have tried to kill him, knowing it's a once-in-a-lifetime chance, because they have no problem to oppose the gods or the king. All the other ants submitted because the gods and the king were much stronger, not because they actually respected them. But when Yuppie and Poof found Meruem, the thought of possibly overthrowing the king didn't even occur, because they specifically inherited the will of the queen and were loyal to their king. They tried their best to save him, no matter the cost. The gods had an ambivalent relation to Meruem. On the one hand, they inherited the will of the queen, and she wanted Meruem to become the cold, strong soul king of the world, ruling with his raw power. But on the other hand, they were also loyal to the will of the king, and Meruem's will was to do what he thought to be right, finding his own path beyond the role of his mother. If you're familiar with Jungian psychology, these two opposing sides are related to the Great Mother archetype. On the one hand, the mother has to nurture, provide, and create a safe space for the child. That is called the elementary character of the Great Mother archetype. But on the other hand, she also has to push the child into the outer world so that the child can develop into an independent person. That is called the transformative character of the Great Mother. Poof and Yuppie didn't like the development triggered by Komugi. Meruem lost his memory after the explosion. Yuppie and Poof thought it was the perfect opportunity to get rid of Komugi, so that Meruem would turn out the way the queen imagined it. Meruem noticed the tension inside Yuppie and Poof, but he didn't forcefully impose his will onto Poof and Yuppie. He respected their wish, but he also wanted to remember what he had lost. Meruem used his N, tracked down his enemies, and he remembered Komugi. That was the moment he reached almost complete enlightenment. Meruem beat Knuckle and Meleoron unconscious with the intention to interrogate them. But when he remembered Komugi because of Wulfin, he ordered Poof to release them when they woke up. Meruem also accepted that Wulfin didn't see him as his king, but Gyro. Meruem left to find Komugi and he wished Wulfin that he would find his king. During his conversation with Palm, he wanted to know where Komugi was. He was ready to even kneel in front of her. She then told him the location of Komugi, and they were reunited one last time. During their games, Meruem told Komugi about him being poisoned, and that if she stayed longer with him, she would also die. Komugi willingly stayed with him, because she loved his company. From her point of view, Meruem was the first person to show her that kind of affirmation. She probably felt most comfortable with him, because he genuinely valued her. I think it was a pleasant death for Meruem. He was able to be with the person he liked the most, played Gungi, and eventually died on her lap, holding her hand. Meruem not eliminating Knuckle Meleoron and not torturing Palm showed the intrinsic value he gave to life itself. No mindless murder anymore. Because after remembering Komugi, he also remembered what was really important in life. It isn't physical strength or giving in to his emotions. It is the potential of life itself, which he learned to value. He already was on the right path when he talked to Netero. At that point, he only valued humans who already had exceptional talent like Komugi or Netero himself. But at that point, he had not yet grasped it in its entirety. That realization came after he remembered Komugi and became aware of his limited lifespan. Meruem fully developed his own identity. He broke free from the role of his mother and the gods. Poof cried a lot after Wulfin reminded Meruem of Komugi, because now the wish of the queen couldn't be fulfilled anymore, and he partly failed as a god. I think Meruem was able to fully integrate his shadow. He fully learned what Komugi had to teach him, and he isn't comparable to the person he once was. The impulsively driven nameless king became a fairly developed human. Ultimately, the beast was able to integrate the human. The most important aspect of Meruem to make progress was the right attitude towards his state of consciousness and ignorance. Whenever Meruem found out that he was wrong or didn't know the whole picture, he almost always let go of his old knowledge and beliefs. It obviously wasn't easy, but in the end he always made the right decision. Most often people have a hard time accepting new knowledge or beliefs because their egos cling too much to their old beliefs. Meruem showed how it's done. At the beginning, Meruem's ego stood above all, but in the end it served his convictions and what he had learned on the way. As always, thank you for watching the video. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like and write your opinion in the comments. If everything goes according to plan, the next video will be a shadow video about Gon with a prediction of his comeback. And yeah, stay tuned and hopefully see you soon.